do you want to be successful across your top of funnel channels this Q4? The real secret sauce to success, especially on Meta during this high intent, high cost period that is Q4, it's creative diversity. It's not necessarily just about volume anymore. We have shifted into a new gear all about diversity in our content. It's time to get into the hook laboratory. I always start long form video content with a really basic test. What Meta is looking for when they are looking at creative diversification across video assets is that I love working with Pilot House because while we are a performance marketing agency, we really pride ourselves on caring so much about brand and creative. At Pilot House, we don't just make ads, we craft them. Every edit, every word, every scroll-stopping detail is built with purpose and care, and I truly believe that care drives creativity and creativity drives results. Our attention to both scale and brand allows us to craft strategies that deliver you short-term results while making you long-term successful, which is so important for any DTC brand. If you are curious about learning more about working with Pilot House, you can fill out a lead form at pilothouse.co and let them know you want to go on a brand new ad venture. You don't actually have to say that. You don't have to make a pun. I'm not going to force you to make a pun. Just fill out the lead form. We'd love to chat with you. Hi, welcome back to Ad-venturous, the podcast produced by DTC and hosted by me, Aves. Today, I wanted to kick us off with a question that's hopefully easy to answer, which is, do you want to be successful across your top of funnel channels this Q4? I hope the answer is yes. If it's no, honestly, I can't really help you with that. I don't know what the blocker is. Maybe seek therapy. But if the answer is yes, this episode is hopefully going to be super helpful. It's really time to start locking in around content and creative. I did just kind of anecdotally see a LinkedIn post recently about locked in being like toxic to say. I don't really know what that's about. I do love when people say really silly stuff on LinkedIn. It's very entertaining to me. But to me, locking in is just like, okay, it's that time of year. I'm going to be working a little bit more than usual. We have to produce a lot of content. And locking in is something that's like exciting to me. I lock in when I play Mario Kart and I pick this very specific Toad build that I know I can win against my boyfriend. When I pick that build, like that to me is locking in. So anyway, do you want to be successful this year during Q4? Are you ready to lock in? If yes, stick around. This episode is all chock full of really quick tactical ideas you can do next week to help start creating better content for your ad accounts. The real secret sauce, I'll say this right at the beginning, the real secret sauce to success for brands, especially on Meta, during this high intent, high cost period that is Q4, it's creative diversity. It's not necessarily just about volume anymore. I feel like I myself, 3-4 years ago, I would come on to All Killer No Filler, talk about how important volume is. And that was really true of the time, but we have shifted into a new gear, which is all about diversity in our content. Most platforms at the top of funnel, kind of Meta, AppLovin, Snapchat, all of that, Pinterest as well, they all do reward you for creative diversity. I am going to focus this episode mostly on Meta because that's where most brands tend to spend the most money and it is where creative diversity is most important. But if you have any specific questions about Pinterest, Snapchat, sort of any of those, we usually call them secondary channels because they're not main drivers. AppLovin, I've got tons of experience on AppLovin as well. If you want episodes sort of dedicated to those smaller channels, let me know in the comments. I probably won't go too deep into them, again, unless you guys let me know and you leave a comment and hopefully a nice review as well. That's always nice. 5 stars. But back to Meta in today's episode. First of all, I just want to say if you don't have proper resources in place today to achieve high levels of creative diversity throughout Q4, then it might be time to call in some support. So you're going to want to head straight over to the Pilot House website, fill in a lead form, and let them know that you came from this podcast, Ad-venturous. My books are open. I have time and space to chat with you guys about how we can potentially help and what systems you might need to put in place before we actually hit peak season and we're in it and it's too late to make any of these changes. I love ripping apart ad accounts. It's like one of my favorite things to do. It doesn't even feel like work, but I love doing it on those calls. Obviously, in a fun, whimsical, approachable way. But if that's something that interests you as well, and you just want to get a second pair of eyes that's seen a lot of ad accounts and a lot of big mistakes, then again, just fill out that lead form, let them know that you came from Ad-venturous, and then I'll contact you directly and we can chat from there. But yeah, if it's not specific to ads, we can also chat about studio content. Pilot House, we have a great studio system where we're shooting content that's going to directly tie into ad strategy as well. We can also support with CGC. A little secret to how Pilot House stays on top is we've got a really great in-house creator program. So we work with these people directly. I was just talking to one of our creators this morning about how I want her to put up some Halloween decorations in her home to film for a brand that I've been working with. So they're part of the team and we're contacting them directly. It makes it really easy, but we're also on the Pilot House side capable of going out. We've got creator coordinators who are really good at negotiating, finding good creators, and we've got a huge network. So if it's studio content, CGC content, if it's ad strategy that you need, or actually another really big flag before I move on from this, Amazon content, it sort of gets forgotten about. Personally, I do find creating content for Amazon a little bit boring. It's not as fast paced as other platforms, but we've got a team of Amazon experts. And what I do know is that as we get closer and closer and closer to shipping deadlines and even just holiday shopping in general, people tend to gravitate towards Amazon because it's dependable, it's easy, everything's getting shipped to the same address, you only have to punch it in once. So really think about, is your Amazon storefront sort of up to par? Is your A+ content looking as snazzy as it can be? If not, again, reach out. We can go through that, audit it with a fine-tooth comb, and figure out if we can, use our studio capabilities or repurpose some content and get you on the right track, sort of wherever creative plays an important part. So that's my rant. Like I said, if you are feeling even a tad bit shaky over any part of your content development funnel heading into Q4, today, right now, is the time to reach out and get help with that. I mean, I've onboarded clients like 2 weeks before Black Friday and spun around ads for them. Don't do that. It's not fun for the team, I have to say. But we have done that kind of thing before because it's worth the investment, it's worth the time, and it's worth the effort, I think. And this episode hopefully will help give you some tools to start thinking about it on your own. But like I said, if you can't actually get the content, then give us a call. Okay, so resourcing aside, how do we actually maintain creative velocity and how do we actually stick the landing when it comes to creative diversity? You can, and this has happened to me, have sort of every engine running at max speed, but if you're not following any type of guidelines and if you have no strategy connected to how you're actually diversifying your creative, not just creating it at mass, then you're not maybe actually supporting creative diversity in your ad account at all. So like I said, today I'm going to be primarily focused on Meta. It's the most demanding channel. It's where most of your budgets go. And yeah, there's different nuances with other platforms like TikTok Shop, for example. We've got some experience there on the Pilot House side. And a lot of it is sort of affiliate run. So it does depressurize the need to have this like in-house or agency side creative engine running. So there's, a lot of different nuances. We're just going to focus on Meta today. But like I said, if there's a different platform you're feeling specifically nervous about, I've probably ran ads on it. So give us a call or leave a comment and I can sort of chat about that in a follow-up episode. Also, I wanted to say, if you are wondering how I'm qualified to talk about this, for basically all of the accounts that I work directly with, Meta reps are always reporting that we've got the highest scores in creative diversification and the lowest scores in creative fatigue. And these are big, big brands that I typically work with. Kind of a humble brag there, I guess. But yeah, I am like truly on the grind on this one. I walk the walk. This is what I do when I'm not filming these cute little episodes. So let's just get into it because I'm really excited, obviously, by the quick pace at which I'm speaking today. I'm very excited to talk about this. So the first kind of section of this episode, I want to talk to you guys about hook testing. So you've got a longish piece of video content that's working. Great. We love it. Awesome job. It's time to get into the hook laboratory. I always start long form video content with a really basic test. So I have the creator or the employee, whoever's making that long form piece of content, I have them record multiple versions with different hooks that I run with very bare bone edits. So I always start with this really basic sort of formula for a test where the first 5 to 7 seconds are different from a creator shot point of view. So they're doing different voiceovers and different beginnings of the video. And so I find this is the simplest way to approach creator content and looking for what works, what doesn't work, and really doing meaningful tests. You don't have to only do like 3 per creator. That's just sort of the number that works for me. And also, I wanted to preface this by saying that your ad spend is going to dictate how long you want to keep this initial sort of bare bones test live for, of course. But once you've garnered some meaningful results, it's time to analyze. So say I'm testing 3 assets and the differentiator is 3 different hooks. I am going to comb through everything for each of those 3 different assets, each of the 3 different hooks. So I look at comments and engagement, I look at click-through rate, I look at cost per click, I look at plain old return on ad spend, I look at demo data in Meta, I look at platform data. Where is this being shown? Is it like primarily on desktop? Are we seeing it pop up a lot on Instagram? All of these different things go into how I actually analyze a piece of creative. I look at everything. I really, on the accounts and the brands that I work with very closely, I don't really believe in winners and losers anymore, by the way, not in a like hippy dippy participation ribbon, everyone's a winner kind of way. I mean that I have been working with some of these brands for quite a long time now. And when I work directly with them, I know that we are so good at what we're doing that all of the content we produce is very high confidence. So me and the team, we're not just producing waste anymore. We're not getting these content creators making content that has no chance of winning and we're just making it to throw spaghetti at the wall. That is not what I do when I operate with brands. Some content performs better than others, of course, that's just what happens. But what I'm trying to get at here is it's like a mindset you hit once you've seen pretty consistent across on an account and you've kind of cracked that initial nut of Meta. For us on a brand that I work with, it runs very smoothly. Like I know what content needs to be created for different launches. I know what kind of hooks work really well. It's just like a well-oiled machine at this point. So again, there's no real winners and losers. There's just some ads that perform better than others, but most sort of pass our metric of success, which is a really cool spot to be in. And I think it did help me personally find different ways of analyzing and then iterating on content, where previously when you're on that grind of just trying to find like one ad that works, I know it feels a lot easier to just cut the ones that don't. But like I said, me and the teams that I work with, we've really stopped producing waste in terms of the content that we put out there, and everything works to some degree, which is very lucky and fun to be in that sort of spot. But yeah, I wanted to also preface this conversation with like, that is where I operate from. I know that's not necessarily where everyone is, but let's just get into some examples. So say we have this 3 video test. Let's say video 1 has the best return on ad spend, but it is very expensive to run. The costs associated with it are sort of through the roof. It's converting, but it's really niche and it's only working when delivered to like a bullseye perfect audience segmentation. And then video 2 is an example. Let's say it's got really incredible costs. It's so cheap to run, but it's converting at a much lower rate than video 1. And video 3 has done reasonably well. It's kind of in the middle performance range from a cost perspective and both a conversion perspective as well, but it's killing it with engagement. People are commenting, people are reacting. Everyone's sort of gravitating towards this ad from a entertainment and engagement point of view. So in writing and in life, I do believe you should kill your darlings, which basically just means to edit. If I didn't kill my darlings while producing this podcast, I would have no listeners. And last week, I probably would have gone on a really long tangential rant about Diana Vreeland for like 20 minutes, and then it was barely related to the topic of the episode. So it's very important to edit. And I do think this in ads, but I think that once you've just launched, say, these 3 videos, what is more important than killing your darlings at this stage is analyzing and iterating on our darlings, which sounds a little weird, but we're just going to go with it. We're not going to go down the Diana Vreeland Vogue in the 1960s rabbit hole. Instead, we're just going to stay above ground and we're going to chat about how I really like organize my ideas and analysis around these made up video examples. So video 1, like I said, it works really well. It converts at a high rate, but it's specific. It's only converting people who are already problem aware. And one thing that's really sort of interesting to me that people tend to throw out a lot right now in the content space is that creative is the new targeting. And in some ways, I do agree with that. We run a lot of top of funnel content now. We don't really know. Obviously, we've been post iOS 14 for a while. It's a bit harder to get the audiences that we actually want, and having creative that resonates with those audiences is obviously going to help the algorithm tilt towards them. But I do think there's something when you see something like video one where conversion rates are really high, costs are really high as well, that it is really difficult on Meta nowadays to have this like sniper precision when it comes to building audiences. I don't think we're fully in this like creative is your targeting. Like that's a little kooky crazy to me. But anyway, not going on tangents. That's the goal. I'm going to talk about a couple creative focus iterations I would apply in this scenario. I don't want to talk about campaign structure and segmentation strategies here because it is boring to me and this is my podcast and it's about content and creative. So I'm not going to go there right now on this episode. But yeah, there would be some merit in moving a piece of content like this into a deeper place in the funnel. It might also make sense to use it on secondary platforms where we're doing a lot of retargeting or even testing it on landing pages. But yeah, like I said, no rabbit holes, no tangents. We're just focusing on what creative iterations we could build for an ad in this sort of situation. What I often do after all of those initial tests are over is I run a hook test for each hook variant, if that makes sense. So if you remember, the setup of this example is we've got 3 different videos and all 3 different videos have a different hook. I will then start doing micro tests of those different 3 hooks. For video 1, in that situation, I'm going to try to spice it up a little bit. Again, the context here is just sort of these top of funnel performance focused creative iterations. So keep that in mind. So what metrics like high costs and high conversion rates tell me from a creative specific point of view is that the asset itself doesn't have the capabilities I need it to have at the top of funnel to drive performance. It's not grabbing attention enough unless someone is already problem aware. And then I really hope that we're not spending too much money on those people at the top of funnel. So it is time to do my favorite thing, which is to get weird and to get unhinged with your content. Sometimes I'll add like a really funky edit as an intro to the hook, depending on the brand and how cool they'll be with sort of doing something weird. Oftentimes I'll track down sort of where in the ad specifically people are clicking through, and I'll just bump that visual straight up to the top of the video. Another cheeky version is adding a sort of white bar, like an old-fashioned meme at the top of the asset, and then adding some really engaging copy. And almost like sometimes I do try to rage bait people on the internet, oftentimes through ads, because that gets a lot of engagement and that does get a lot of clicks. So when the issue with video 1 here is that it's converting high but not getting a lot of clicks, doing some rage baiting can be very helpful. Basically, every new variation you create has one goal, which is to grab more attention without compromising what makes the asset itself convert. I want to caution you guys against like taking that piece of advice and thinking that what you should be doing is adding really crazy and what I refer to as flimsy urgency claims. So when people are like, running out of stock, last chance, and there's no merit to the urgency, that to me is a very flimsy urgency claim. And I don't really see it being that effective other than like sales ending or something like that. So this early in the process, especially, like I said, we just did that first initial round of very soft edits on the creator content. We're just testing the 3 different hooks. This early in the process, this goes for all 3 examples. I also try to avoid sort of Frankensteining the voiceover too much. So I don't change the actual voiceover from the creator. I just try to change the visual hooks at the beginning or add text hooks. And like I said, that kind of applies to all 3 examples we're running through here. I think another really, really important note, if you're going to take away one thing from this episode, I'm actually begging you, have it be this thing. What Meta is looking for when they are looking at creative diversification across video assets is that the visual in the first 3 to 5 seconds of that content is different. I actually can't believe I'm telling you guys this because this is a really like juicy tidbit of information, but whatever, I don't know. Have it for free. It really helped me. But yeah, changing that first 3 to 5 seconds of the actual video, that is the most important thing you should be taking away from this episode. Adding in overlay to the same video that says something like selling fast, it does not count towards actual creative diversity. The actual video that you use needs to be different. So really think about when you're formulating these iterations, how you can do that. For video 2, moving on to the next example, where we're seeing really great costs but low conversion rates, you do have, again, a bit of an audience problem potentially, but also you just have sort of a compelling argument problem. It's almost like the net is too wide, so you're just catching crap because you're not doing a very good job at explaining what the product is actually going to do. So it's like when you see this kind of result, again, great costs and low conversion rates. So people are clicking, but they're not buying. The ad tends to appeal to people who maybe can't afford the product or people who exist totally outside of your demo. I see this sometimes with male focused brands who bring on like female creators to make content for them. And the creative does tend to generate a lot of eyeballs and clicks, but sort of for all the wrong reasons. I think I've used this example in the past, but think about those like, I think it's Carl's Jr., that like kind of nasty looking burger chain, and they do those ads with supermodels. It's sort of the same premise of that, where if you're doing something top of funnel and you're just looking to get awareness, that works, or it could work. But that kind of strategy, it just doesn't really work when we're talking about performance-focused ad creative that will scale. Again, if you're just like looking for reach, you can do what you want. But today we're not talking about brand building. We're not talking about reach campaigns. We're talking about tactical and technical ad ideas you can implement like next week and see better performance in your ad account. So not a good idea if you're really focused on performance to have this mismatch of creator and demo. So just try to avoid getting attention for the sake of getting attention during Q4. I think video 2 presents the opposite issue of video 1, which is really fun to discuss here and talk about how I problem solve for these things. But again, most of this episode, I want to focus on changes we can make to the actual creative itself. But as a little hot tip before I get into some ideas for iterations, I do want to say that what we tend to do at Pilot House when I see these kind of results is we test landing pages and we test the post-click side of things sort of first. So I don't know if you guys know this, but over here at Pilot House, we use a proprietary tool that we built ourselves to test landing pages at scale without messing about with the post ID. So what that means is that we don't lose engagement, we don't lose performance. We can just swap in the landing page on the back end. And I personally have seen post-click optimization like this really make a difference when I do see ads that get a lot of clicks, but they don't drive a lot of conversions. Obviously, the conversion happens on the landing page, so that is just as important as making changes to the creative. But this tool that we built, Warp Drive, it is only available to our clients directly, wink, wink. But it does, again, really help solve this issue of an ad that gets a ton of attention and doesn't convert very well because, again, I don't want to go on a rant, but I love a rant and I love info dumping and sharing with you guys. So why this works so well when we use Warp Drive in this specific situation is because we already know what people like about the ad. So on the landing page, we'll develop pages and content for those pages that focus around the same angle as the ad itself. So when you're not able to test landing pages like that, you're just sort of working with like, what do people say? I've got like a square hole and a round peg at that point when it's only ads. So you can do a lot of work. I'm going to outline some ideas on how you can iterate to make these types of ads convert better without changing the landing page stuff. But it's sort of an easier hack to go about post-click first when you do see high rates of engagement and lower conversion rates. But back to the actual creative iterations you can make. What I usually see when I see brands running content that is, again, getting attention, getting clicks, but not converting, is that you might not be representing the actual product or brand well enough in that first 5 seconds. So try shifting the visuals to include the logo and also include shots of the product in use so that people clearly understand what they're clicking on and they know what they're going to get to when they get to the landing page. Or if you have, say, a product feature that really converts, you can try showing that visual in the first 3 to 5 seconds as well, depending again on what you're selling, what your brand is. Really make sure that you're just representing what the sort of problem is to the solution that they might be unaware of at that point in the funnel. Really like fun. I think I did an episode on this a couple of weeks ago, but just try to brainstorm ways to visualize your product. That's another thing that's really going to make or break your success this Q4 is if you have short form video content. I feel like I say short form video content on this podcast every single week, but that is how important it is. Basically, most top meta ads that I've seen are sort of high scale accounts, are video driven. They're the strongest, most dependable. They're the easiest. That's why I'm spending so much time on it today to make iterations on. But they're also incredibly helpful to move over to those secondary platforms like Snapchat, Pinterest, App11, what have you, TikTok, all the whole gang. Most platforms require video content to succeed. So that's why I talk about it so much, just for some context. But yeah, if you're seeing this type of performance where you get a lot of clicks, you don't convert that well, obviously, like I said, the easy route is changing the post-click side of things and really paying attention there. But on the front-end side, on the pre-click side, you really want to be focusing on how you're visualizing the product, specifically how you're showing the sort of problem and solution in that first 3 to 5 seconds of the clip. Last but not least, let's talk about my third example, video 3, where we are getting a ton of engagement, a lot of interactions, maybe a lot of people sharing the ad, but we are not seeing super strong performance. It's kind of a middle of the road performer. When I see something like this, where I'm getting a lot of engagement and comments on ads and people think the ad is like really funny and cool, first of all, that to me is a person who makes ad creative is, don't tell anyone this. To me, that's better than seeing an ad that performs really well, because it's like, whoa, I made good advertising. Like, the highlight of my career so far has been someone commented on an ad that I made last year and said, this is the funniest ad I've ever seen. And I did screenshot that. It's on my desktop. It keeps me motivated. It's like, I don't know, meta comment sections are often very wild and cruel. So getting hyped up as an advertiser on Meta is rare, and I really did appreciate it. But anyway, when I see lots of engagement like this, it draws the conclusion that the concept is good, but it might be more of a brand builder than a conversion driver. So what I do is I kind of split up how I approach this type of performance in an ad account, and I kind of bucket off the concept in the world of brand building and organic, and I think about how I can make it even more entertaining on that side of the road. And then back on the performance side of the road, I work backwards. So I know that the concept is good. I know that the angle is entertaining, but how do I go about getting conversions from there? How do I spark like a more meaningful interaction with the brand? Sometimes, again, to be really transparent with you guys, I don't. Like, sometimes I just get this little spidey sense. And again, it comes from having worked with some brands that I partner with for a really long time. But I get this spidey sense that this is just going to be something we should run at the very top of the funnel, because a lot of the brands that I work with, like I said, we're high scale. So we're doing a lot of reach. So we'll let it run as a little top of funnel engine. Or sometimes I'll just move it over to the organic side of things completely, if I don't see any merit in it potentially being a good piece of performance ad creative. But like I said, that comes from a lot of experience. So what I do, funny, I said do, what I do in this situation when I am just sort of refocusing the ad and working backwards is that I'll try to really get to the like bones of what makes it funny for someone and why they enjoy it. And then I almost like rip away most of the entertaining things and replace it with product focused information. So a good example of this is one of the brands that I work with. We do a lot of sort of playful banter with very typical household buildups. It's just something that our audience really loves to see. And so something that's really exciting for me is, like, again, I've worked with them for quite a while, so I know that there are different ways to deploy that sort of playful banter between a husband and a wife that do convert, versus there's different ways to present that, like, quote unquote problem, and do it in a way that's only focused on generating engagement and comments. To do it in a way that converts, you have to mix what's engaging. So say it's like, trying to think of a different example, because sometimes I like to challenge myself to like come up with things on the spot. Here's a good one. Okay, noise canceling headphones. This is really relevant because my partner and I both work from home. Noise canceling headphones. A like fun play on that is like drown out your partner's bad singing while they're cooking. That is something that I do, by the way, every single time that I cook. I put on my noise canceling headphones actually, and I sing really loud and off key. And my boyfriend doesn't say anything, which is really nice. Anyway, if that's the product, that's what we're going with as an example. Instead of just saying like, cancel out your girlfriend's loud, bad singing, while she cooks. First of all, that does feel very antiquated. So maybe don't do that, but the way to make that more focused on actual performance in an ad creative sense would be to present a solution as well. So it's like, POV, you got these headphones and now you can focus on work while she gets to sing her heart out in the kitchen. So it's not just presenting the issue. I'm hoping that this is clear and it makes sense, but not just presenting the issue to the audience, but presenting the solution as well. So you're kind of giving them everything, but keeping that fun sort of joke that they like and you know that they want to interact with. That's, again, one small example of just making sure that you're thinking about those things through less of an entertainment point of view and more of a performance point of view. So that was a lot about like a very specific type of iteration, which is when you have video content that's working really well, how do you up your creative diversity? Like I said, I love starting with just 3 concepts from one creator and then doing these little micro changes to the hook in each. And then sort of after I've done that, taking that information and moving forward with a better idea of why each hook works, what is driving performance for each one. And also that then gives me the freedom to kind of go nuts and shift things up in really big ways compared to the initial small test where 3 of the original and then 9 iterations, those are all really micro moves. After that, I'll start splicing things together, changing the voiceover, doing all sorts of fun stuff. But that's how I sort of lay the groundwork. And that being part of my continuous strategy for testing ads means that there's like built in 12 different pieces, like by meta standards, different pieces of creative entering the account per creator concept. So that adds up. So yeah, point I'm trying to illustrate here is like just work this idea into your workflow that you're switching up those little 3 to 5 seconds at the beginning visually, not just adding in a lazy little overlay. And that's just going to naturally help you create more creative diversity in your account. The next version of this I want to talk about is turning static content that works into video content. Like I said, that was a lot in terms of like creator video iterations. So congrats if you listen to that whole thing. But I want to chat about something that's even simpler and easy to achieve. I don't know why I didn't flip the order of this, but taking your top performers and just switching the format. So I'll start, like I said, static to video. It's super simple. It's not as long or laborsome as a process as changing up creator or employee generated content like I just went through. But what I start to do, and this is another hot tip on like my workflow and how I manage things, I open like Northbeam, Ads Manager, wherever I'm looking at performance data. I start every single day by doing that to really make sure that I constantly have a handle on what's working for what brand. And it feels like a lot, but it's just this like habit that I've had since I started working in marketing to really stay on top of what is working across each account. And also, yeah, it's just a really good practice to get into, checking out like at the ad level what is going on every single day. Might feel like kind of overkill, but that's where I get some of my best ideas. It's also where I have time to really dig into comments and some of the like secondary pieces of data and KPIs. So would recommend. And what I tend to do is I go through, and again, once you start working this kind of thing into your workflow, I think that you just get used to being in this mindset. But I will pull ads that have really strong performance consistently or are starting to perform very well that are static, and I will kind of pull them off into usually just my desktop. That's also like a new little secret I'll spill. My desktop is a nightmare. It's so messy. I try to clean it up, I don't know, every once in a while. It's very messy. Anyway, I'll pull them into a weird little corner of my desktop and take all these static ads that are starting to work well or have been working well very consistently, and then I'll kind of make it a challenge for myself throughout the week to convert like 5 to 10 of those, if not more, to video concepts. And don't be lazy about this. Be lazy about other things, not this. Don't just animate copy on a static creative that's already working. Try to really add value by adding the movement to the content. That's something that I feel like, yeah, sort of gets lost on folks sometimes, is they'll just take this advice and start adding movement to their concepts for like no reason. Really think of meaningful ways you can inject movement in video content. So for example, if you're currently using like a static model shot in a very plain just sort of background with the product image overlay, if you have video content of just like a model wearing the product or using the product, whatever it is, I definitely recommend swapping that in. It's again, like it's providing some meaning in that maybe you've got a static piece of content where someone's like wearing sweatpants, your sweatpant brand. And if you've got a static image of a model wearing it, adding in like a GIF or an actual short video of them like moving around in it or showing like how deep the pockets are or how comfortable the waistband is, that is actually adding meaning and value to the concept instead of, like I said, just animating something for the sake of doing it. Another really easy thing to do is if you're using like a static CGC image in maybe like a 4-panel grid setting, try switching it out for, I'm going to say it, a piece of short form video with that same product featured instead of the static version of CGC or like a kind of scrappier shot. Switching like static images out for one video in grids is also, it's just very easy. It does help your creative diversification, and it is the easiest thing to do in the world. It takes our designers like 10 minutes. Like it's not difficult, and it does provide a bit more value because, like I said, you're showing more product features than you do with a static image. I do see a lot of brands, like I mentioned, doing this sort of like product shot over a colorful background with some simple overlay. And I do know that these take like 5 seconds to make with generative AI, so keep plugging them away if they're working for you, no hate. A nice shift here could be adding different variants, so switching out the product featured. You can also add like emojis with motion, so like animated emojis. I feel like on All Killer No Filler, I went through a phase where I was like talking about emojis every episode, and I still do use a lot of emojis in ad creative. They are modern day hieroglyphics, and I use them a lot in my personal life too. But yeah, adding some emojis like in the background if you're promoting something for fall, like little falling emojis. Eric and I just talked about this on All Killer No Filler. It does work. It seems really small, seems really silly, but it helps sort of keep the content relevant, and it also helps with your creative diversification score. So really important to do. And yeah, just to kind of circle back to the main point here is these iterations should hopefully really enhance the ad itself and add more value to it rather than just, like I said, adding movement to add movement. Next, we're going to talk about turning video ads to static ads. So another really kind of simple exercise to run through is just the same thing, grabbing top video ads, kind of maybe being more organized than me and not just throwing them on your desktop, but putting them somewhere. I actually do like to use Figma for this as well. But yeah, putting them somewhere and then giving yourself the week to ideate and strategize around ideas you can convert them into static ads. This is especially smart when you are focused on acquiring new customers for as little money as possible, which is like basically all brands that exist. That's what you're trying to do, hopefully, is cut down costs and really nail NCAC. So yeah, turning video ads into static ads can, in general, really help with the overall costs of your account. It's typically just more expensive to run video. So something I've done, it's so simple and like hacky, but if I have long form winning creator content, I will just like grab the raw files from the creator. That is something you should be doing anyway. And then I'll grab like a really high quality screenshot of kind of the hookiest part of the hook or where folks are clicking. So if they click at like the 17-second mark because the visual is just really exciting, I'll grab a static sort of screenshot of that and then just run that as an ad after resizing it. So simple, but sometimes works insanely well. So if you haven't ever thought to do that, saying it out loud sounds really like simple and silly to even recommend doing. But yeah, I feel like when I was a little baby marketer starting off, I never really thought of that. So really easy to do, takes like 5 seconds. And then yeah, like I said, just resize it, run it as an ad. And it usually works very well if you've got some good, strong copy. If you've got a polished video ad that's working really well, so a lot of motion graphics and animation, if you've got a lot of that, first of all, I would say why. I feel like that content barely works on top of funnel platforms, but what you want to do is really distill down like what is the general angle and then start maybe doing some copy tests with static sort of very polished ads. If you've got really good photography, you can take that angle of that winning polished video asset and then add it as copy overlay to some really strong photography. Usually that's a good way to bridge those gaps. If you do have, this one's also a pretty good tip. If you've got a video that goes really in depth explaining the difference between you and a competitor, something that I like to do is make a single placement graphic with like a bulleted list of the reasons that you list in your video. Us versus them statics, they can work. I don't see them work as well. What I tend to do is, yeah, just have the product that I'm selling, the brand I'm working with, and then I list like positive things about it. And then I list issues that people typically have and like cross them out. And that I have found in my experience is a little bit more efficient and performs better than like typical us versus them ads. But yeah, I definitely get that that angle is important and it's really easy to communicate when you are using video, but just trying to think of different cool ways we can do it on the static front to, again, just kind of address costs and create more creative diversity in your account. So yeah, when looking to take those video winners and turn them into static concepts, just try to maintain like the integrity and the angle of the original ad as much as possible and try to capture, yeah, again, just like what the actual angle is of the video, either in shorter copy. So that's also a really fun exercise for me as someone who likes writing copy, is to really kind of put pen to paper watching my own ads and try to figure out like a quick snappy way to say what a 20-second video is saying. But yeah, the main kind of takeaway from taking video to static should be that you're like static to video, doing it weekly. First of all, really important to do it all the time. And then the sort of secondary big thing to take away is just make sure you're maintaining the angle that actually works from that winning video creative. So that was a lot. That was a long episode. If you listened to that whole thing, good job. I hope you found some value in it. Like I said, this is like what I do all of the time. If I'm not recording a podcast or, I don't know, helping with training or doing something else, like I try to create content as much as I can during every single workday because it's fun to me, but also it's important to get into that habit, I think. Of course, like I mentioned, a lot of the brands that I work with, I also lead up the sort of creative strategy components of what we're doing. So I'm thinking about things really deeply, but getting yourself into the habit of briefing out or ideating creative during like spare times of your day really helped me achieve higher levels of creative diversity as well. Like I do time box sections of my day for myself to be briefing out and creating content. But like I said, if I happen to have 15 minutes before a call, I will go into those Figma boards, I will look at what's working, and I will start ideating new ideas based on them. It's like a good replacement. I don't want to call anyone out. A good replacement if you find yourself sort of between tasks or between meetings, like going on your phone, really putting that energy and effort into just, yeah, like I said, opening up that Figma or opening up your desktop and looking at the ads that are working well and getting some ideas down on paper, like making that just part of the natural flow of your day and not sort of confining your creative work to your time blocks really allowed me again to just go dummy on the amount of content that I'm able to create. And then it doesn't feel like a big overwhelming thing where I have to like block off half a day and it's taking up all my capacity. It's just something I'll be doing in between calls. I also have like a notes app kind of thing where I jot down ideas or screenshot ideas and put them in there if I'm like out and about in the world. But yeah, I will not keep you guys for any longer. That was a very long episode, but like I said, hopefully full of like things that you can test and try out. And like I mentioned at the top, I'll say it again, if you don't have a creative engine in place, if you're not sure how you're going to source all this content heading into the most important time of the year for your brand, go over to Pilot House's website, fill out a lead form, let them know that you came from the pod, and we'll be able to chat directly from there and we can come up with some cool ideas and we can do a little audit of the ad account and see what's going on, kind of take a peek under the hood. But yeah, hopefully, again, there was some value for you guys in that. If you haven't, please give the pod a rating. Hopefully it's good. And like I mentioned, if there are any channels that you're adding to the mix this year for Q4 and you want to talk about what creative works there, drop a comment or hit me up on LinkedIn. Like I said, I have almost an unfortunate amount of experience with all these different channels out there. So happy to do episodes about like one of them specifically or potentially just mash a couple into one. But yeah, good luck out there. Things are definitely heating up. We're seeing a lot of accounts starting to perform, starting to scale. It's a really exciting time of year, but also really stressful. So like I said, reach out if there's any way we can help you. Studio content, meta specific content. We do it all. So reach out if you need anything. And yeah, I'll chat to you guys next week.